Heuermann is an architect. He's a researcher, he's a planner, and he's a builder. Do you think there was a concerted effort to change up or throw investigators off of what he was doing?
Absolutely. You look at his personality appears to be very systematic.
You've spoken to hundreds of serial killers. How do I get him to admit it?
When you figure that out, I want you to write a book because you will have cracked the Holy Grail. And the fact that he read Mindhunter tells you a couple of things. One is a fascination. Did the fascination lead to the homicides, or was the reading of that a way to just kind of further understand what he might potentially be up against with law enforcement? And so you really have to start wondering why that was such an important book to him.
Well, I'm going to ask you that question because you saw the planning document. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I mean, he purposely calls out pieces from Mindhunter and talks about those. He talks about the same things that he would see online. I mean, it's no secret anymore that people can have their phones tracked. That cat's out of the bag, you know. That's why law enforcement has to continue to be vigilant at being proactive instead of reactive to things.
Well, let me take this one step further. Heuermann is an architect. He's a planner. He's a researcher, he's a planner, and he's a builder, i.e. building of plans, right? Obviously, plans. Do you think, looking at the crimes, and I think the fact is, yes, we can blame Suffolk County Police Department, or at least the DA, for maybe not recognizing some things that they should have when the crimes were happening. But it got to the point, looking at all these victims and the victimology, you know, Asian male, you're going to say, was it different? You know, the signatures, the MOs can change, of course. But do you think there was a concerted effort by Rex Heuermann to change up or switch up or throw investigators off of what he was doing?
Oh, absolutely. If in fact he's responsible for this, and if you read that document and you look at his personality appears to be very systematic in the way that things are done, and certainly follows rules in the way he did things professionally, which would certainly bleed over into his private or his pursuits, perhaps on in the dark web arena.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, and as you read that, I mean, you have as great an understanding about the thought processes of criminals after all your years of doing documentaries of about anybody I know. I mean, when you read that, doesn't it just match the personality, which is perfect if you're trying to say these two correlate with each other?
Well, that's what I am trying to find out, whether or not, you know, this is a regular guy. You know, we have to take into account that this gentleman has been theoretically and or allegedly killing for 32 years. So much like adults change from, you know, you're different from your 20s to your 30s to your 40s to your 50s, your tastes are going to change. Styles are going to change. You're going to evolve as a person and as a killer. I was just trying to figure out whether there was a concerted effort to throw the investigators off because of what he had learned in Mindhunter and other sources. And that may be one reason why we're seeing MOs change. Are we talking about forensic countermeasures? Are we talking about for example, is dismemberment forensic countermeasure, or is it part of the psychopathy of the sadist torso killing?
So I guess that becomes the question. Is it signature, or is it MO? This is the way I'm going to get away with this crime, by moving these body parts to different locations. You know, I wandered around Long Island a few months ago. I actually was over, if you remember the murder of Dennis Wustenhoff from Suffolk County. I was with Dennis's family and had been visiting with them. And I decided to just go out and camp on Long Island, or on Gilgo Beach for a while. and I parked, and I would get off in and try to get into the brush, which was next to impossible. I mean, you can cut in through the houses, and you can walk the beach a little bit and get a little bit. But I mean, he was picking areas that were really great, and I actually created those maps. I don't know if you had gone through those on my story map that I created, but I talked about the potential routes that he would have had to travel in order to, if in fact he's responsible, dispose of those body parts the way he did, to separate, for instance, Peaches and the baby. Really intriguing to me
Bookends.
to do that. Yeah.
Bookends, right? Crazy.
Yeah. So to do those kinds of things fits exactly with what your question is. Do I think that's what he's doing? Heck, I don't know, because there's so much I don't know about this goofy case. And yet how long have we been looking at this case? 10 years or so?
Exactly. I could have had the 18
I think
with
it's miraculous that you actually were putting 2 and 2 together back in the killing fields.
I know. Listen.
Killing season. I mean,
I asked you to. I was like, guys, please come out. Like, I had Greg Cooper and you. Greg Cooper, weirdly enough, mentioned in Mindhunter, which is even spookier. So then it just all. I was like, you guys got to come out. Oh, if I would have had that. It's all right. So
we needed one more advertiser to pay.
Exactly. One more episode, we could have brought you guys out. But these are the questions that I have, because you go through and you're like, again, why did the DA think that there were 3 killers? And of course, the other side of that irony is there were, you had Rifkin, Schulman, Bitroff, and the other guy, allegedly, Rex. So you did have a number of killers, but ironically, they all just thought Rex's crimes were so many, which now, is the Southside Slayer? What's going on here?
Yeah, and I think psychologically, we as people want to solve these mysteries so that we can sleep at night. And personally, I don't believe that Heuermann's responsible for every murder out there. If he ends up being found guilty of these particular murders, there are a batch of bodies strewn across that region. But clearly, the DA has now determined that he's responsible for a vast number of those.
Peaches?
I haven't heard that. Have you?
No. Do you think he's responsible for Peaches?
Oh, I don't know, Josh.
But her body, but the kid is found. They're all found on Ocean Parkway. That would be 2 killers dumping on Ocean Parkway.
Oh, sure. So that's interesting, because when I was talking about a serial killer in Northern Australia a few years ago, and there were a number of murders across the Flinders Highway, if that rings a bell.
No.
And on the Flinders Highway, my comment during that podcast, and that was on Mapping Evil, was that, is this truly the work of a serial killer, or is this a serial location? And some of those bodies at Gilgo Beach, to me, appear to be tidally influenced deposits of bodies. Others appear to be, the same person depositing them based on some of the similarities. So you start seeing these differences. Shannon Gilbert is another wild card to me. I know that her attorney darn well wants Heuermann to be responsible for that. Personally, I don't see it. But I don't know what they know, and they probably have more information than we have. But I look at those different disposal sites. I look at the conditions around those. I look at what might influence those ending up being deposit sites. And to me, it becomes more a serial location than a serial killer for all of them.
Do you think, after Amber Costello, which is the last one, do you think he stopped?
That's what would motivate him to stop? Either he was so scared he didn't dare go forward again and try it, that somehow they got too close to him. But I don't believe that the motor turns off. I don't believe that the fantasy disappears. I don't believe that a serial predator fills their tank and doesn't need to top it off from time to time. And
Great
and so
analogy.
yeah, if that's not a little sick on its own, I don't know. But I mean, those kinds of things, they really do trouble you, because you wonder why they would stop. I started using geography to look at serial predators and focusing on that. And I had this aha moment one time. I was sitting at a conference listening to this woman who had spent her entire career watching the Arctic wolf move around in the tundra. And she had collars on them and
Cool.
GPS. And she was tracking where they would commit their kills and how they would conduct business. And I was so fascinated by this that
Cool.
I remember meeting with her afterward. And I said, could I use the same algorithms to track serial killers? And that's actually what led to me doing with mapping what we did for so many years,
Mhm.
where we started looking at the location that was their geographic footprint,
Yeah.
where the game was, because the Arctic wolf wouldn't move on unless game disappeared or something of greater significance, like human predators or an animal that was tougher than them. They got too old, came in and took over their territory. And I look at serial predators the same. Perhaps age got to the point that it was more work than it was
That's what I
worth.
was wondering, whether that, testosterone kind of, you just get down to it a little bit, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it's so interesting you mentioned that, only because I think I learned a lot from you guys back when I was doing this case, and so many others. We actually covered so many cases during that season, during that show, that the geographical profiling really stuck with me. So I remember when we would be doing something, I'm like, Peaches is huge. And they're like, why is Peaches so huge? I was like, what are you talking about? The geographical footprint has just been increased by 20 miles. That's huge. Or Sandra Castilla, from North Sea, the woman who DNA, North Sea, that's huge. Now we're talking about a much bigger geographical footprint. I just don't think people truly understand how much you can figure out from geography.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if somebody looks at that story map that I created and looks at the route that Heuermann, for instance, would have to take in order to accomplish all those, you see things that say, wow, that makes sense. Now I can see how someone could make this huge loop
Yeah, the
and
loop.
accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. So it becomes, again, another important piece of the puzzle, that it may end up really being an important piece, like when a receipt is found, or someone's hair happens to be found in tape inside of the body bag.
By the way, for a guy who spent all this time prepping and planning, he sure screwed up the whole tape thing. But
Yeah. So isn't that really the interesting thing too? Because you think, at what stage did he start to go from being so incredibly organized and really planning things out and crossing all of his T's and dotting his I's, to starting to make mistakes? Was he getting so confident that it was like, they're not going to catch me anyway, I don't need to work that hard? Or was it that he's starting to become a little disorganized, and that leads him to think, I got to back off because I'm not as sharp as I used to be?
well, I mean, what's crazy is that even the first crime, Sandra Castillo, 1993 and 2016, you're talking about two different, the first and the last, theoretically, and they're still hairs. So you have to say he did all this planning, but he just kept screwing this part up. Is he just getting so excited by the act that he's not following his plans? He's washing cavities, yet when he goes to tape them up, he's getting the whole family's hair in.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting question to see if they can somehow answer, or if one day, if he ever is found guilty and says, okay, let me come clean on a few things. I don't know. But yeah, you do wonder, are they decomposing, or are they getting reckless? and thankfully, those are the things that save cases. So hopefully, these knuckleheads keep making mistakes, because I think there are a lot of bodies that we never find out how or why they were killed, because they're either dumb luck or they're really good at what they do.
So you've spoken to hundreds of serial killers. You've got them to admit things. How do I get them to admit
it? Man, when you figure that out, I want you to write a book and only give it to homicide investigators. You can't give it to anybody else, because you will have cracked the holy grail. Because you know what? I remember somebody saying, if you've talked to one serial killer, you've talked to one serial killer. And you know, as much as you'd like to think they're all the same, each one of them is different. Each of them is built a little differently, and cracking each one of them is a little different. So who knows? And so, Josh, write it up, and we'll publish that book, and we'll sell it to narcotics cops, or I mean to homicide cops, for like, I don't know, $500 a copy or something.
It'll be like Practical Homicide. It'll be like the Practical Homicide textbook. Like,
exactly.
We'll get Vernon to give us a forward. Mike, it's been great as always. Just super fast. We didn't even talk about anything geographic profiling, which I'm sorry.
Oh, we better come back and do that again sometime.
Yeah, but I'm just truly fascinated. I think we could go on and on, because I have about 10 more questions, but this has been great. And, you know, is there anything you want to talk about as you wrap it up?
No, you know, I was racking my brain. I think the last time we saw each other face to face was in an airport, and it was either at JFK or in London. And I cannot place which of the two it was, but it's so good to be with you. And I'm so grateful we've been able to communicate all these years anyway, through text and to get to know your family and know some of the special things there has been great. But you know, I guess the final thing that I would just say is keep doing what you do, because law enforcement has to mature with the true crime audience, and I don't think they're doing it fast enough. And it cannot be an adversarial role. I get that law enforcement has to keep some things close to the vest, but they have to get better at giving the public jobs to do when they can't solve an issue themselves.
Yeah.
And on some of these stinking cold cases, open the kimono, because you're not getting anywhere. You're not solving the case.
Term? Is that a technical term?
It is. It's one you get at the academy, and you know, I mean, ask people. And I think if you go back to the Delphi murder case of Abby and Libby, I'll tell you what, the state of Indiana, in my opinion, were rock stars on one occasion when they stepped forward and they said, we have this social media profile of a guy named Anthony Schatz. If you've had contact with that person, reach out to us. They narrowed the margin. Instead of saying, hey, if you got any tips and leads, or if you're a psychic and you had a new dream last night, you know, that's how they end up with thousands of tips that just waste their time.
Yeah.
But they gave a specific need. And I think, imagine if somebody said, we have this individual and we're looking for their great aunt who lives somewhere in Chicago, and you turn the true crime community loose.
Oh, absolutely.
They just have to get better at it. So please keep doing what you do. And thanks for the chance to have been a part of your journey along the way, because you have knocked out of the park some amazing true crime stories.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Well, hopefully we've got a few more left before they put us both out to pasture.
Hopefully, although I'm becoming quickly a was instead of an is.
All right, Mike, it's brilliant. Lovely to speak to you. And then I can't wait for the next time. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
brother. See you.
Bye.